Cross-site request forgery has always been one of those topics that I feel like I understood in concept, but I never really fully appreciated how it relates to web applications and how it's exploited. So for this video, I am going to fully explain what cross-site request forgery is, how to fix it, and give you specific examples on how it's exploited. I'll do that in the most simple way possible and not give you too much information, just so the actual basic concept is fully understood. Make sure to like and subscribe if you like these types of videos, and let me know what you want to see next. So in the simplest terms, I would say cross-site request forgery is an attacker making a request using somebody else's authentication. I've opened up Paint here because, you know, what's better than explaining a concept than using Paint? Okay, so first off, we have the browser, okay? This is a client-side attack. So what we're gonna do, okay, I also got an attacker here. Let's represent the attacker with this PNG. And then this browser is gonna be the victim's browser. So what we're gonna be doing, we're gonna be sending a request somehow to this browser from the victim to make a request. And then let's get one more icon here. Of course, the fake PNG server icon. So this is gonna represent the web application. Now the attacker is making a request using the victim's web browser to make a request, like a sensitive request, to the web server. Now let's get a little bit in more detail here. Now something to keep in mind is that when we're talking a web browser of the victim has logged in to the website at one point and has had a session or like cookies going in. So let's use like YouTube, for example. Or all the requirements that really need to be here are that the user has logged in at some point and has established a connection or a session. And then finally, has a cookie. So the three things to keep in mind: the user has a browser, has logged in at some point, and has a session. So like when you log into YouTube multiple times, the reason you don't have to log in again and again is because YouTube has recognized, or the web application, in this case YouTube, let's specify that as well. It recognizes your browser and it like stores a cookie within your browser so that you don't have to log in every single time you open up YouTube. Now we're working kind of backwards before the attack side of things here, but I wanted to also specify that cross-site request forgery attacks typically target making a change to a sensitive attribute within the vulnerable web application. So that could be like changing your email. So a typical example of this would be if I were to change the email of your YouTube account without having to actually hack into your account or know your password, that would allow me to request password resets that would go to my email, and then I would be able to change your password to whatever I want. Now I saved the attack part for last just because this is what I want to dive more deeply into. Now, the simplest way to put this is phishing links. This is the most common method of delivering cross-site request forgery attacks is through phishing links. So you're getting your victim, I don't know why I'm talking as if we're the attacker here. The attacker would get the victim. Now, once the user is able, or the attacker is able to get you to click their link, it's gonna, in one way or another, make a request using a URL to the YouTube web server using the cookies that are already stored on the browser. So this is going to be usually a URL request. And to understand this even further, I have an example that can help clear things up. Okay, so this would be an example of a link that you would get the victim to click to be able to make the modification. This is the attack that they would use. This is the payload. So now let's break this down. Obviously, we're visiting youtube.com. There's a function. This is what update email PHP. So this first function is, so let's say you want to update your email regularly on YouTube. This is the function that would execute that. As soon as you hit submit request, it's going to update the email using this URL through a get or a post request, an HTTP get or an HTTP post request to update your email. And because you're already logged into your account, or you have already logged into your account at one point, you have the cookies necessary to make this execute properly. This second part, so anytime you see a question mark after a PHP file, and PHP is going to be the actual logic on the back end that updates your email to your account within the YouTube database. The query just fills in the attribute itself. So right now we're using the email or update email.php with the query of update my email to the attacker email. And that would automatically execute since after you click that link, it's gonna open up a link on your browser, the victim's browser, to update the email. Now, thank God for TryHackMe, because I wanted to show you a real life version of how this would work. This is just a regular vulnerable server. Let's go ahead and log in. And then one of their functions that they have is updating their role. Now, for the sake of the TryHackMe exercise, the updating role feature was disabled, and we'll get to that aspect of the exercise in a bit, but I wanted you guys to kind of understand this example here. So the website, after, let's say, you know, the function actually wasn't disabled here and this was a fully vulnerable website, this is what the URL would look like. So we're still visiting the same website on 8080. That's just the port that we're using to access the website. The PHP file, so that's on the server side. That's what's being used to update the role, and then the query is just staff. So if I wanted to change somebody's role and give them less privileges or update their privileges, all I have to do is change this, give it to the victim link, and then if I had access to their account, for example, I would have access to admin privileges if I compromised their account. Now, before I get into the second example of this, I wanted to explain how this is usually fixed. Typically, websites will have CSRF tokens, and this is something that you can view on the majority of websites nowadays, where they'll have a specific token that's stored beyond cookies. So the key difference here, the thing that kind of helped me understand this the most, is just understanding the difference between a cookie and a CSRF token. So we already know that a cookie is established immediately after you log in the first time to the website, and it's going to be tied to the browser itself. So if you open up a new tab, or if you click a link with a YouTube video on it, it's going to log you in as in your account automatically. However, CSRF tokens are going to be something that's established by the response you receive once you logged in. So you're going to get the web page, and then within that web page of that request, that specific time you're accessing the website, it's going to send a code that will establish your CSRF token. And the way that's useful, the way that prevents cross-site request forgery attacks, is that now if I send you this link, it's not going to be valid because it's not going to include the token that I was able to get by logging in that one time. So cookies are like a session that can last months, you know, if you continually log in, whereas CSRF tokens, it specifies the connection you have with the website per the request you make. So anytime you log in again and you receive another response, it's going to include a new CSRF token. Another key fix, one of the most common fixes to understand, is using post instead of get when it comes to sensitive changes like updating your email or password. Now, post and get requests, the reason post is more secure than get requests is that if I click this link up here that is a part of the payload, it's going to make a get request. But you can't do that using post. So I can't send you a link, or the attacker can't send you a link that would create a post request to the web server. But if all you needed to update your email was a GET request, anybody could send you a link with that specific URL and it would automatically update your email. Now, I wanted to give you one more practical example that will help you understand CSRF more, but also explain another potential vulnerability that can exist. Now, if we view the page source of this website, and this is supposedly a secure website because it uses CSRF tokens, but So first off, I wanted to show you how this is actually working. So CSRF token, this prevents CSRF attacks. If I visit this website, just trying to update. So I send you the link and I try to update your login to, or your role to staff. I get an error. Invalid CSRF token detected. So because on the server side, I need a CSRF token to update the role within your account. And this is where it's established. So this is a part of my response after logging in. So after I log in, this is the response that we got. And so this is where the CSRF token is stored. Now we know what the value is. So if I make another request using that exact CSRF token with the variable, so now not only are we have two variables now, we're sending the updated role as well as the CSRF token. And if we hit send, boom, we get it updated it, and we get the flag that was a part of the test for Try Hack Me. That should give you an idea of how it works. Now, one thing I wanted to explain further is the reason this is considered vulnerable is because the value of the CSRF token is very predictable. This is base 64 because of the equal behind it. You can assume it's base 64, and we can even decode it. So CyberChef is the main tool that you can use to encode and decode different variables and stuff. So from base 64, so we know it's base 64 again because of this here, and we can see that all it is just admin encoded. That's very insecure because now it doesn't really matter. All I need to do as the attacker is to give you a link with the known CSRF token. The reason CSRF tokens work is because the attacker doesn't know what it is. So it has to be randomly generated per session that's created. Yeah, that's the gist of CSRF tokens. Let me know if that made sense. And if you guys have any questions, I'm also answering questions all the time in the comment section. I'm also gonna potentially be making a video now on cross-site scripting, just because that is an extremely popular attack method. Make sure to like if you liked the video, and yeah, thanks for watching. Peace out.